This video is sponsored by ANZ Fire, the Australian New Zealand Foundation for Individual Rights and Egoism. There are no better tools for promoting rational self-interest and individual rights than the novels of Ayn Rand. Inspiring characters, dramatic plots and a clear vision of life's great potential all combine to excite young readers. The Ayn Rand Institute in the US runs essay contests for students worldwide. This year the first prize for Atlas Shrugged is $25,000, for The Fountainhead $10,000 and for Anthem $2,000. All in US dollars, so that first prize for Atlas Shrugged translates to about 35,000 Aussie dollars. Additionally, there'll be a prize of 1,000 Australian dollars for non-students up to the age of 25 in Australia. The deadlines are the 25th of April for Anthem and The Fountainhead and 19th of September for Atlas Shrugged. By the way, Anthem can be read in less than 2 hours. An easy read during the school holidays. So spread the word to young people wherever you find them. You might even have a few in your own home. And for more details, visit the ANZ Fire Facebook page. Links in the description and the comments. If you're like most people, you probably don't like listening to politicians regurgitate their party talking points. But we are now in the midst of a federal election campaign here in Australia, so it's worth paying attention, because those talking points usually include big promises about how they're going to improve your lives. Now, if you're new to this politics thing, most of what they promise and say won't improve your lives. It's mostly to get you to vote for them. So arguably more important than the talking points themselves is how they respond to questions about those same talking points, to see whether they have any facts and figures to back what they say. And judging by some recent performances, Bill Shorten is having a little trouble justifying his batshit crazy policies. You see, Bill Shorten, in his haste to pander to the Malthusian climate alarmists, is proposing a 50% renewable energy target and a 45% reduction in carbon emissions by 2030. Oh, and he also wants 50% of new cars sold in Australia by 2030 to be electric cars. But what's that going to cost, and what kind of effect is that going to have on the economy? Well, it turns out the guy advocating for those policies doesn't even know himself. Now, you'll need some patience to endure Shifty Bill's bullshit, but the payoff at the end of this 2-minute exchange is well worth it.
Just exclusively since your budget reply speech and focused on health, when can voters expect to learn more about Labor's emission reduction target, how you're going to get there and the cost to the economy?
Well, first of all, I haven't spoken exclusively about health.
Well, to be fair, some of your staff have said the same in private conversations. You focus pretty exclusively on it since
I don't know what private conversations you have with people or what you want to reveal. But let me just go to the record. I just said 4 minutes ago, Mr. Morrison loves to boast about his strong economy. I'm pretty sure we were all here when I said that. But let me say it again, because I think it's a really good point to make. Mr. Morrison loves to boast about his strong economy. But his strong economy is your classic liberal strong economy. It's built upon two propositions. One, low wages. They're proud of it. They almost have a religious fervour, don't they, about being happy when the wages are low and corporate profits are up. Did you know that since the last election, corporate profits have gone up 39%, but in fact wages have moved on average 5%. And the second leg that he relies upon for this liberal strong economy is the reduction in real spending on services, in particular health, but also I mentioned education, I mentioned TAFE, I mentioned childcare. The problem for Australia is that a liberal strong economy relies on the mythical belief that if the biggest corporations in Australia make a lot of money, if the richest people in Australia can pay less tax through the loopholes, that miraculously everyone else benefits. That hasn't been the lived experience. Labor has a different view about what creates a strong economy. What creates a strong economy is fairness and decency.
You're not answering the question, Mr. Shorten.
Okay. I'm going to give someone else a go.
Answer the question. When can people know?
Dan.
When can people know, Mr. Shorten, the cost of the economy? You didn't answer the question.
Do you know what, John? I'm going to go to the next person.
No, you should answer the question. That's why we're here, to ask questions, and you're not answering the question.
Dan.
When can people expect to know, Mr. Shorten, the cost of the economy?
All right, Dan.
Why can't you answer the question, Mr. Shorten?
Because I'm going to give your colleagues half a go.
No, because
Dan.
you should answer it. Why can't you answer the question, Mr. Shorten?
Now, unfortunately, holding politicians accountable for what they say is all too rare these days, and the journalist in question, Jonathan Lee, well, he wasn't done. He backed up the next day with the exact same question.
Can you give a final detail on how much the emissions reduction target will impact the economy, what that figure will be,
We will see across the 2020s, as a result of our energy policies and our climate policies, GDP growth of about 23%. I've said that I think, or don't think, but that I know, our economy is going to grow. I don't accept the characterisation that it's a cost. We're going to grow.
Remember, Shifty Bill had a day to prepare for that question, do his homework so that he wouldn't be caught out again. And that's the best he could do. Sure, Bill, the economy will still grow over the coming decade, but what would it grow by in the absence of your costly policies? This is just a sneaky way of not having to tell people how much it's going to cost. Back in February, the first independent modelling of Labor's plan said that the 45% emissions reduction target would push electricity prices 50% higher, cost workers up to $9,000 a year in lower wages, and wipe $472 billion from the economy over the next decade, and would result in 336,000 fewer jobs. Yeah, nice one, Bill. Now, it should be said that neither Bill Shorten nor any independent economic expert can accurately forecast what GDP will do over the coming decade, but let's just go with Shifty Bill's numbers, 23% growth in GDP over a decade, and that implies an annual growth rate of just 2.1%. Hardly inspiring. But that's the best case scenario in a Labor economy built on, what was it again?
Labor has a different view about what creates a strong economy. What creates a strong economy is fairness and decency.
Ah, yes, fairness and decency. What kind of mealy-mouthed nonsense is that? Yeah, I want my economy driven by fairness and decency, not an environment that encourages entrepreneurship, businesses to expand and create jobs. No, fairness and decency. But what's fair and decent about forcing more expensive renewable energy down everyone's throats, Shifty Bill? Now, we should say that the Coalition is better, but they still suffer from an inability to take a meaningfully different stance from Labor. The Coalition is proposing a 26 to 28% reduction target at a cost of $70 billion and a 2% hit to real wage growth over the next decade, which will result in a forecasted 78,000 fewer jobs. The Coalition wants to have it both ways. They want to say that coal is still important, but we need to adhere to the non-consequential Paris Agreement. So we're just less bad than Labor, and that's why they deserve the label Labor Light. Now, Shorten says that his plan will cost the same as the Coalition's because he's going to allow Australian businesses to purchase carbon offsets from overseas. But given that we have no idea what the carbon price will be in the next decade, these numbers are not precise in any sense. Now, Bill's inability to give a decent answer was still dogging him today, and he's getting visibly frustrated.
You and I know this is a fundamentally dishonest debate. It's not you or the people asking the questions, it's what the government's saying. It is so dishonest. You all recognise a scare campaign when you see one.
Yeah, we do, Bill, like the Mediscare campaign of 2016.
I'll give you three numbers. 50,000 more jobs in renewables if we go down our path.
Well, let me give you a number, Bill. 336,000 less jobs if we go down your path. Now, we're not done with bloviating Bill yet. He doesn't seem to know his own policy on superannuation.
Yeah, we have no plans to increase taxes on superannuation.
That's different to ruling it out, though.
We have no plans to introduce any new taxes on superannuation.
So will you rule it out?
Sure.
But you see, Bill is going to reduce concessions on superannuation contributions to the tune of about $34 billion.
I thought I was being asked about have we got any unannounced changes to superannuation, and we've already made the announcements of the changes we're going to make. But obviously we have changes which we outlined 3 years ago, and of course, so it should have picked the words better, no question. We have no proposals other than what we've already announced previously.
Oh, that's it. Bill was just confused by the question. Well, I submit old Shifty Bill is confused by a lot of things, including his own policies. And that's probably not a good character trait for a Prime Minister. But Labor are still in front in the polls, so the next 3 years might be just one long repetition of this question.
Dan?
Why can't you answer the question, Mr. Shorten?
I'll see you next time.